Hello, everyone. I'm Brainerd Carey, Director of Praxis Center, and today I'm talking about a topic that is of interest to the members and was brought up more than once in terms of something they'd like to see a talk about. So for all of you that are members that are listening to this now, you can know that you can always suggest a topic and most likely I will address it or have someone come in and address it in a live talk. So today's live talk is about proposals, project proposals, and business plans is what was asked about. So first I'm going to talk about project proposals because this is really in a way simpler than you think, but there are some aspects that are important to it. So project proposals. A project proposal can mean a number of different things. It can mean you're proposing something to a gallery, a commercial gallery. It can mean you're proposing something to a nonprofit space, like a museum or an alternative space or an artist space, meaning a collaborative space, not a co-op. I'm not talking about co-ops. But a proposal is of course, for most of you means an exhibition proposal or an installation proposal of some kind. So what I want to talk about first is the difference between giving a proposal to a commercial gallery versus a nonprofit space. Now, a nonprofit space, museum is one, and as I've mentioned, alternative spaces are another. In Europe, you can find all your nonprofit spaces through the Ministry of Culture, and in the United States, you find nonprofit spaces through your state council on the arts and your local council on the arts. Nonprofit spaces, I talk about a lot here because I think they're enormously important to an artist's career. And it's important that we make the distinction between nonprofit spaces and pay-to-play spaces. I'm not talking about shows that cost money to get into, that don't take a percentage. Nonprofits function the way museums function. Their purpose is educational, and a museum's purpose is to educate the public, right? That's not to make money, but to educate the public. And other nonprofits that get money from the state or government are in the same position. They're getting a tax break because their goal is educational for the public. They don't sell work. Maybe they have a gift shop, right? But they don't sell work. That's not their goal. So I want to talk about, there's two ways to give proposals. You can give a proposal to a commercial gallery whose goal is to sell work, not to charge you for showing or anything, but just to sell work. That they usually give you 50%, right? There's proposing something to a commercial gallery. And then there's proposing something to a nonprofit. So let's start with a commercial gallery. There's a gallery in your neighborhood. There's a gallery you've walked into. There's a gallery that you're showing in or have had a group show in, and somehow you're interested in them. Whatever position brought you to giving a proposal, which might be a few. Like, for example, you could, if you're involved in a gallery already and you want to give them a proposal, you can say, listen, I'd like to give you a proposal for a 1-week show with a 3-day event or something like that, right? You already have a relationship there. If you don't have a relationship with a gallery, rather than give a proposal right away, I think the best way to begin working with a gallery is, if possible, go to their openings, of course, and meet them and see what these people are like that run the gallery. You know, galleries are really like mom and pop grocery stores. They're run by people who usually don't have a chain of these. You know, it's just one, and they're doing their best, and they're trying to learn about art. So going to the openings and building a relationship is the best way. I owned a gallery for a while in Rhode Island, and it was interesting what I learned about people who came in and talked to me and came to the openings versus people who sent in images or proposals wanting a show. I ended up showing all the people who I knew and who were my friends. And it was exactly, in a way, what I didn't want to do. I was out of college and trying to start a gallery and be as democratic as possible. And what I found is that I'd get some proposals for shows or different things. And yeah, you know, the proposals were interesting. But when someone came into the space and began talking to me about a proposal, that became much more engaging. And I didn't know why at first. And I didn't know why I was showing people who were my friends as opposed to other things that came in. And I did show other people who weren't my friends, but it was largely my friends. And that's what I didn't want. I felt like I was creating a clique, and I didn't want that. And so as I examined that, I realized the reason was because we want to work with people that we're comfortable with, right? This is human nature. I learned a lot about human nature in those first years of owning the gallery, and what I learned is that it's human nature to want to work with people that you feel comfortable with. So if somebody comes into the gallery and they're talking to me, and they make me feel awkward, and I'm having a hard time understanding what they're saying, and there's just something that's not clicking, and I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm probably not going to want to invest a lot of time in working with that person. Whereas when someone comes in, sometimes people that I know, um, friends, and start talking enthusiastically about a show, it's easy for me to get excited about that and talk to them about it. It didn't always happen. I remember I had one friend who was pushing like crazy for a show, and he's a good artist, but he was pushing so hard that it kind of made me recoil a little bit, and I didn't give him a show. So this is a little bit just to say that it's important. The relationship is important. Human nature is important. The idea of feeling, are we comfortable with this person? Are we comfortable working with this person? Is this person reliable or crazy or unpredictable or wonderfully eccentric, which is also fine. It's not like you have to be a really straight artist with a solid business approach. You can be very eccentric. But the issue is, can you communicate and make someone feel that they trust you and that they trust that you can execute this proposal? Because that's what it's going to come down to. Trust in you, especially if they don't know you already. So again, proposing to a commercial gallery, first aspect of that is to go visit the gallery, meet the people, go to the openings, show an interest in the owners and who they are and who you are, so they get to know you. Then a proposal. You can ask them, I'd like to give you a proposal. This happens a lot to galleries. In a way, a proposal is exciting to them because it's all of their work done. You're curating something. You're proposing maybe a solo show or a two-person show or whatever it is that you're proposing, but it's essentially something that's kind of done for them, which is pretty cool for galleries, right? They like that. So how would you go about giving this proposal? And it can happen in a number of places. So let's say you've been to a gallery a few times, or you're showing in that gallery, or you know someone from that gallery, and you're at the point where you think, I'd like to give them a proposal, or you've mentioned to them that you'd like to give them a proposal, and they seem open to this, and you say, okay, I'll send it in. So now is the time for you to make the proposal. So here's the nuts and bolts. The proposal should first have a short description. The short description should be about a paragraph long, at the most. And that means well under at least 250 words or less, ideally less than 250 words, which is not very much. But if you think about it, the form that I like to think of when doing this very brief synopsis of a proposal is a listing you might see in a blog or a newspaper that describes the show. Even if it's a show at the Museum of Modern Art or a gallery, they'll describe that show in one sentence. Even if it's an amazing show, a retrospective, or if it's a complex show with many different mediums and many different artists from all over the world, they will explain it in about a sentence. And that's what you need to do at the beginning of the proposal. Explain it in about a sentence, very succinct. Then the rest of the proposal fleshes that out. But that first paragraph, that first 250 words, again, is like a listing. Anybody can come from anywhere. Your grandmother, your child, they could pick this up and read it and get a sense in that first sentence or two what you're talking about. Oh, you're going to have a show of paintings, or you're going to have a show of films and music and paintings, and you're working with 3 other artists. It should be clear. Then the rest of the proposal fleshes that out. So what's happening in the show? So there's a number of ways you can do this, but what I would suggest is after that first little paragraph, and this comes with a cover letter. It can be part of the cover letter. Dear so-and-so. I always start letters, which many of you may have noticed, dear so-and-so. It's just professional form. Hi, John. Hi, Jane. Little too casual. People do it. It's okay. But I think it shows a certain kind of respect and formality to say, dear so-and-so. It doesn't hurt, I don't think. That's my style. And then say, this is a proposal for a show at your space that would be approximately, whether it's 2 weeks or 4 days long. And I've outlined it below, and I will follow up by calling next week or coming to the space. And then your first paragraph of summary, and you can say summary of the proposal, again, just one sentence. And then after that, you flesh out the proposal. How many pieces? What is this? Is this a solo show of just your work? How many pieces are in it? Is it multiple mediums? Is there mixed media? Is there mixed media as well as, let's say, photography and video or projections or who knows what? But what's in it? What are the pieces? How many pieces? What is the cost of all of those pieces? What's the retail cost? Because for a gallery, again, what's king is sales, not nonprofits, but a gallery. The sales are king. So if they feel like they can't sell this, it doesn't matter how much they love your proposal, it's not going to pay the rent. So that's what it comes down to. So, okay, you need the prices in there. How many pieces? You're showing 20 pieces. And let's say out of the 20 pieces you're showing, you can save 10 more in their back room. Because usually when artists have a show, it's not just everything on the walls, it's everything on the walls plus maybe 50% more or at least 25% more in the back room that they can pull out and show people if a lot of the work gets sold and you need more. So, okay, then the rest of the proposal is outlining what your show is about. And again, this could be a solo show, this could be a two-person show, this could even be, something else. So you explain how many pieces, what the costs are, what the net value of selling, let's say, half the work is, so they can see that. These are numbers that they need to know, that they'll decide on their own. If you have followers, what the followers are. If you have collectors, whether you'll bring a crowd or not. And then, if possible, do a mock-up of what the show would look like. This is very exciting to a gallery or space, because what means the most to them, right, is their space. They've rented this space, they've, painted it, lit it, and it means everything to them. So if you photograph their space and then remove the art in there and put yours in there instead, that's really attractive to them. That draws them in, because now you're messing with their space. You're kind of telling them and showing them how beautiful their space is. So again, and then with a follow-up. So to summarize, because I'm going to go into a nonprofit and a business plan next, there's a lot in this talk, but feel free to ask all the questions you want. A proposal for a gallery ideally begins with a relationship to the gallery. As the example I made in the gallery that I owned, people tend to work with people that they've met, that they can get a personal vibe off of, because we all want to know, is this person trustworthy? And the way we know if someone's trustworthy is kind of by vibe, right? You talk to someone and right away you get a sense of it. You get a sense from my tone in this videos and others where that determine whether you think I'm sincere or telling the truth. And this is how relationships work. So the beginning of any proposal, ideally, is to build trust. Go to their openings if possible. Do whatever you can to build that relationship so they know you. And then if you want to submit a proposal and they say yes, they're open to a proposal, submit a proposal the way I outlined. And what I would say is one thing on that proposal, because the way I outlined it was, dear so-and-so, here's my proposal. I'll thank you for looking at this. I'll follow up next week to talk to you about it. First paragraph is synopsis of the proposal. The rest fleshes out what's in this proposal. How many pieces? What does it look like? How long does it run? What are potential sales if half the work is sold? Because all the work never sells in a gallery. In the gallery I had, a lot of work sold. Once about half the work was sold, the show was over. Unless I brought out work and replaced it on the wall, which I didn't. But when half the work is sold, people kind of feel like the best pieces are gone, which may be the case. So that's why there should be work in the back. So outline that in there, and then talk about the following, who you think would come to this. This is the time to mention, do you have followers on Instagram that are local? If you're proposing a two-person show, do other people have followers on Instagram? Another huge thing for events and openings is there going to be any entertainment? Wine and cheese is kind of nothing. You can do that if you want, but that's the least of it. Is there going to be music on the first night or on the opening? Is there going to be a poetry reading? Events that you bring to a gallery draw a crowd. Galleries want a crowd, right? So there's your show, and if your proposal is for a 2 or 3 person or 20-person show, obviously the more people in it, the bigger crowd there's going to be. But assuming you're proposing just a 1-person show, or at the most a 2-person show, you want to tell them and convince them a little bit that you either have some events designed, like poetry readings or a performance, or somebody playing the guitar quietly, whatever it is, or not at all. But that's helpful because it shows how you draw a crowd in. Or if you want to talk about also the idea of your following and the people that are coming, and that you can bring a crowd into there through that. That's important too, as well as if you have collectors that are local that you think will come in there. Okay, so that's the beginning of this. The next type of proposal, which in some ways is similar but not exactly, is for a nonprofit. So for a nonprofit, which again is like a museum or an art center or or an artist-run space or an alternative space, not something you pay to be in, not a cooperative, but something that is paid for with state money. They have nonprofit status. Again, museums are nonprofits. So are theaters and all art centers in most cases. And so our schools, universities, mostly are nonprofit. So you can look in your state council on the arts, your Ministry of Culture if you're in Europe, and see a list of nonprofits that are near you. And there's also state and local council on the arts. So if you're, let's say, living in New York State, there's a New York State Council on the Arts. There's also a council on the arts for all the different cities within New York State. Same with California and other places. Sometimes there's a regional, like Northern California, Council on the Arts, or LA Council on the Arts. So that's how that works. So again, proposals for nonprofit spaces are a little bit different. Their goal is not money. They're not interested in sales. Nothing will be for sale in their show. Their goal is education. So when you make a proposal for a nonprofit, and again, this could be a museum, this could be an alternative space, something that you don't pay to get into, something that has nonprofit status, you're giving them a proposal that somehow is educational, right? Their goal is to educate the public. So in your brief description, same letter, same similar format, but in your first sentence or two, you want to say what this show is about and what it will teach the public, what people will learn from this show. And then you want to flesh that out in the rest of it. And when we're talking about an educational show, it's the same show, right? It could be the identical show that was in the commercial gallery. It's 10 paintings or whatever it is, 3 paintings, 4 drawings, 2 sculptures, whatever it is. It could be the identical show, but it's framed differently. In the gallery, it's framed as a beautiful show that people will love and that people will buy and will be a success. In a nonprofit, it's framed as a show that will benefit the public, that will have a local impact. And this is everything to them. That's why they get tax-free assistance and to produce shows, is because their shows benefit the public. So in your proposal, there should be elements of why this will benefit the public. And that could be lectures. There could be lectures in there. There could be a panel discussion. You could give lectures or bring together people on lectures. And what are these lectures about? They're about your art, So let's say you're a painter. Just to be off the cuff and you paint flowers, we're going to have lectures about the history of floral, painting or horticulture or something like that that's related. It doesn't have to be about the art, but could draw in a lot of people. There could be all kinds of things that you could do lectures on. If your work was critical of capitalism or supportive of capitalism or something else, there could be a panel discussion or a lecture series on that as well. So you want to propose something like that. Could be lectures, could be talks. It could also be handouts or activities. What museums often do is they have events and workshops for a whole different range of ages, from preschoolers, toddlers, to elementary school kids, high school kids, um, adults, seniors. This is a whole range of who you could be doing workshops for. So when you propose workshops, which could be in there, and again, that's very succinct, just in a sentence or two, workshop for teenagers, how to um, identify flowers and paint your own, or do a collage of your own, something really succinct, right? All of these things have to be succinct. Everybody kind of scans proposals these days, so it has to be kind of like, wow, this artist wants to do a show at our nonprofit space. She's bringing in two other people, or it's herself. It's all about flowers. She has a following. She's going to do a workshop for kids and seniors and adults and students that help them all understand and identify flowers, as well as make their own in a variety of mediums. Again, I'm being just off the cuff here. You can work in all kinds of things. If you're reading books about something that relate to your art, that can work too. Just pick those topics, whether it's about politics, or about climate change, or about philosophy or psychology. Events can be around that. That's educational. And if it relates to your work in some way, that your work has a psychological element or a self-reflective element, you could go almost anywhere with workshops. So, okay, where you propose to a nonprofit isn't the same way as you would to a gallery. Obviously, I'm outlining something different, but also a gallery, you're talking one-on-one to somebody. They're negotiable. Can I send you a proposal? Can I follow up? They're a mom and pop store, right? Or mom and mom, pop and pop, whatever it is, right? They're a store run by an individual or a couple. And so what the difference really is that in a commercial space, they're going to be negotiable directly in most cases, because they're the ones running the whole show. In a nonprofit space, it's a community running the show. Well, maybe not a community, but the community supports it, and there's a committee, at least, that runs the show, that runs that space, a board of directors. So you have to submit a proposal to a board of directors, and there's a way they accept proposals, and it's probably somewhat bureaucratic, meaning we accept proposals twice a year, or we put out calls for proposals, something like that. It's important how you do it. I remember the first proposal I did that wasn't that clear, but that I got, was for a small space in New York called PS 122 Gallery in the East Village. And I proposed a show where there was a video of a kind of performance my wife and I were doing, and we proposed a show of some of the actions that we were doing in the video, and also some paintings on the walls. When they got that proposal, they said, "Hey, great, we like your video. Your video is in the show." So they misunderstood the proposal, which was okay in a way. We were in the show, but they saw a video. They're moving through things quickly, and they think, "Oh, yeah, these artists show videos. I like that video. Let's put it in." Good to be really succinct. My proposal wasn't clear enough. So you can even get something, and there can be a complete misreading. I mean, I didn't say to them, "You misread this," and but that happens. So important to be crystal clear. Okay, let's see. I want to talk about. I want to get to all your questions, but I want to get to business proposals, because there's a good amount in this talk, but they are all related. And when the question was asked, could you do a talk on project proposals and business proposals for artists, I realized those are several subjects, right? Because project proposals, as I just outlined, could be for commercial gallery, or it could be for a non-commercial space. And I've outlined in this video how to present to those two spaces. Business proposals is very wide-ranging and something else. So it could come down to a few things. Business proposal essentially is not too dissimilar from the first proposal to a commercial gallery. You're saying to that gallery, "I have some art, I have something you want, it's art, and even more than that, it will sell, and I have the means to help that sale happen." In other words, I have a social media following and great art. You're making a business proposal to them, essentially, even though it may not seem like that. it should seem like that. You're saying to them, you want to make money in this gallery, you want to earn more in a show than you've ever earned before. Potentially my show is the one that could happen in, right? I'm not saying to add this into the proposal, but I'm saying it is a business proposal, because what the gallery has at stake here is their bills and their rent. So what they want is for that to be paid. So it is a business proposal. But to step back a little bit, because we outlined those two proposals, there's a number of other business proposals you could, of course, do that can be enormously creative in any way you want. For example, you want to put a mural on the side of a building that's a commercial building, and you want the landlord to pay for that mural. So it's a business proposal, essentially. The landlord is a business person, and he or she isn't interested in most cases in giving money to the community. What they want is for their business to thrive. So let's say they have a store in the bottom and there's an empty lot next to it, or whatever the scenario is, and you want to put a mural there. You can approach them and say, I have a proposal. And this is a business proposal, and it's not dissimilar from how I was outlining the gallery proposal. But you can say, I want to do a mural on the side of your building. This is what it'll look like. And murals of this type, take a lot to execute, and this will also benefit the community and most likely get you a lot of good press. And so in your proposal to them, which again has to be a succinct business proposal, because most likely these people, the landlord is not interested in necessarily supporting the arts or an arts person. You have to be clear about why this is even beneficial. Why is this better than painting the side blue or white? Well, because this mural will engage the community. This will make people happy. And maybe it's a mural about the history of the community, or maybe it's abstract. Whatever it is, that it brings color to the community. Perhaps it brings a narrative, a story to the community. And you can explain to them how this will be valuable for the landlord, because he or she will seem like a very good person who's contributing to the community. And it will have real value that way, because it will help bring people to the location. It will drive traffic to the store and attention to the building, which may even bring in more clients. Because we have to think of always what the bottom line is for the person we're proposing to. A lot of times artists come up with great proposals and they show them to people and they say, thanks for coming in here, but I'm not interested. And it's like, you feel awful. You went to all that trouble and they just said no. And the reason they said no in many cases is because they don't see the benefit in it for them. They don't see the profit in it for them. You were focusing on the art and how exciting it'll be, but they don't see how this is going to make them money. So the way that has to be articulated is in community impact. It's in terms of what will help them. A landlord wants his or her building to be seen. They want to be seen not as a person that's very public, but they want to be seen as a good person. And if there's multiple stores in there, that will help enliven the whole place and draw people to those stores. Okay, so that's just one idea of a business proposal. There could be many, many, many others, right? This is as creative as making art. There's so many types of business proposals. One big one that I used to talk about quite a bit was by a woman who wanted to do a projection on the side of the Rockefeller Center. Because when you pursue, the reason I'm going to mention this case history is because things can start off sort of small and you never know where they can snowball into. There tends to be a lot of serendipity. When you're presenting proposals to businesses, there isn't a lot of competition, really. There's not tons of artists approaching them. Nobody's doing this. So, or very few people. So she wanted to, her whole thing was she wanted to be happier than she was. Her art was about, she felt, making herself happier and other people happier, because she felt that she was always dark. So much so that she changed her last name to Winter, because she always felt like it was winter. She wanted to project people smiling all over Rockefeller Center. She said, because when people smile, it makes it hard for her not to smile. And she liked that. And that was part of what she was painting, working on, photographing. So she thought, can I project onto Rockefeller Center? Now that's a big deal, right? So she tried to figure out how would that even happen. And then so she tried to call video companies and find out what kind of projectors would be used. She shortly found out that there's not many projectors in the world that can project that kind of image that far. They'd be expensive, they'd have to be loaned or rented, and you have to get permission first to project onto that building. So slowly, over the course of several months, she started investigating. She went to Rockefeller Center. She tried to find out, after talking to many people, how do I get permission? She found out how to get permission. They told her, you're going to need to mount those projectors somewhere, which is across the street on another building, which is Saks Fifth Avenue. And you're going to have to get permission from them to put it on their roof. And if you get permission from them, then yes, you could get permission from us. We could pick a day to do it, or a few days. So she said, okay. Then she went to Saks Fifth Avenue. And you can imagine these aren't easy things to get through. Hi, I'm an artist. I'm talking about a projection across the building. Who do I talk to? Saks Fifth Avenue said, interesting. You want to put those projectors up there? And she said, yeah, and I also am going to need money to lease those projectors. And they said, well, we don't really support artist projects or this kind of thing, but we're going to pass this on to our marketing team, and we'll be in touch with you. She followed up. They passed it on to their marketing team. Turns out Saks Fifth Avenue was doing a campaign that was something close to that. Let's get happy and whatever it was. It's somehow related to her work. And so they said, guess what? We'll pay for the whole thing and a fee for you. She had her whole projection, 3 projectors on top of Saks Fifth Avenue projecting, I think, paintings or photographs of smiles all over Rockefeller Center. It was a big deal for her. How did that happen? It wasn't just so straightforward, right? It was one thing that led to another, but she kept pursuing it. So again, there are limitless varieties of these. It could also be something that's very, very kind of small scale, a business proposal for an exhibit in a local store or a gas station, around Miami Basel, which is coming up. What happens every year more and more is there's Basel, which is the main fair. And then there's all these satellite fairs around Basel, right? There's new ones every year. And then there's all these, what they call satellite pop-up shows everywhere. And that's everyone from artists to galleries, saying to a gas station or a library, or really kind of often funky, odd places, but that are in a decent location. We'd like to do an exhibit here, in the candy store of your garage. And I know it sounds weird, but it's a way of getting attention that's kind of out of the norm. And and the gas station can think, well, what does that mean? That means people are going to come in here and you might get more customers. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't have to be a gas station. It could be with, restaurant is, I know people show work in restaurants, but that's not so much a proposal. Maybe you could hang a few pieces, but proposal is more like, I'll take over this space. I'll bring in a band or a poetry, event, something that will enliven the space. These are, again, business proposals, because you're saying to a business person, I want your space, I want to use your space, and I want to, make this worthwhile to you. You're not paying them. You're an artist, and that's clear. You want your art to be shown. They know that's your bottom line. But from them, what you want is the space, and knowing that this is valuable to them. It'll bring customers into them. This is the main reason why empty real estate is so popular for pop-up shows. And you can pursue this in almost any city. New York City, for example, is full of empty realty. It's full of it. There's a number of organizations that have arts organizations that have latched onto that, and they put pop-up shows in different places, which means an artist gets a storefront here or there, somewhere else, and maybe they have to sit in it or not. And the way they do that is they say to the landlords of any of those spaces, listen, I know your space is empty. We'd like to make a deal with you. We want to put artists in there for 2 weeks at a time, so that storefront space will look fantastic. And we need you to take the insurance on it, not us. They may say, we want you to take it on it. There's negotiations there. And you have an exhibit. That's a business proposal. Shishama does that in New York. LMCC does it in New York. But you don't have to go through those organizations. Those organizations just realized, wow, here's a good idea for a business proposal. We'll just do shows in pop-up places and manage it all for artists. But you can also do it directly. So those are I went through a few business proposals, a nonprofit proposal, a gallery project proposal. The same thing is the case with a variety of other proposals. I could go through more case histories, but essentially there's no shortage of artists coming up with creative ideas to say, I want to have a show in this space or in this field or in this way. And when you think out of the box a little bit and you're thinking business proposals, I want to make money off of this, it's very powerful because it allows people to think more about that as well themselves. So, and get interested in it. So let's see. I want to answer questions about any of this, and I'm going to get to all your questions in a minute. But I'm so glad so many of you are here today. Welcome all of you here. If you're hearing this afterwards, of course, you can still ask questions and comments. But I want to summarize what I've said so far. Today we're talking about project proposals and business proposals. That was the suggested topic of one of you that are here as a member suggested that I talk about, and that's what we discussed. So to begin with, the project proposal was we separated commercial and non-commercial spaces. Commercial galleries, ones that have to make money, it's basically a business proposal. I outlined the letter and how to make that proposal for a show, and also make it clear that the bottom line here is the gallery has to feel it's worth their while. Period. When I was, it was funny. My son had a piano teacher who knew a little bit about the work that I do, and she said to me, this was several years ago, she said to me, hey, you would be good at maybe booking me gigs in, because my band needs to book gigs in, I don't know, New York, other places. Do you think you can do that? I said, I was interested in the challenge. I said, okay, I'll try. And I found out how gigs work in New York City. How do you get a gig if you're a band and you want to show and you want to play in one of these cool venues in Brooklyn or New York or anywhere? How do you get a gig? It's all the same everywhere. You can send them a tape, but they don't really care that much about your music. What they want to know is, are you going to bring people in here, and are they going to buy drinks? And of course you say, yes, we're going to bring a crowd in, and you try to promote it. And you say, we're going to promote it like crazy, and they'll buy drinks. Okay, then you can have a Wednesday night. And they give you a Wednesday night or Tuesday night when nobody shows up. So that's the whole deal, right? It's we'll give you a spot if you can generate a crowd and make us money. The commercial gallery is not so dissimilar. We imagine that they have these very high standards and they're looking for the very best art. They're looking for something that will make them money, that does fit in with their aesthetic, their program. But the bottom line is they have to make money. We talked about nonprofit proposals, which is a whole different animal. Like museums, alternative spaces, art centers, they usually have a method for proposing, and also they're not looking for the bottom line. They're not looking for money. They don't sell anything. They're looking for education. So the proposal has to be how this is going to educate the community, their clientele. And lastly, we talked about business proposals, which if you just came on, you heard the tail end of, but business proposals are about making a straight out proposal to somebody, whether it's a mural on the side of a building. I went through projections on the side of another giant building and all the steps that it took to get that financed. But it could be anything from an exhibit in a lobby to a beautiful space to, a piece of public art. There was one artist that was in practice a while ago, and he made sculpture out of marble. And he said, the problem with my work is it's hard to move. It's good in public places, but nobody wants it. And what do I do with it? I'd really love to be in a park. And so he was in Seattle, and what his method was that he worked out in Praxis Center was he wrote to the local town hall and went to the town hall and found out how can I temporarily get a permit to temporarily site one of my sculptures in a park. And it was a park that was kind of lousy, a park where it needed a little cleaning up, that people wished was better. So it seemed like a little kind of improvement to the community. It was a bureaucratic process. He had to go to the meetings, the town council meetings, which for a lot of people in small towns are pretty tough to take. They're slow moving. They're very bureaucratic. It's like watching, impeachment hearings. It's slow and it takes a lot of time and there's a lot of jargon in there. But it's a place where you could say, and here's the key with making a proposal for public sculpture, you can say, I want to put a temporary sculpture in that park. And I'd like the town to pay for transporting it from my studio to the park and back when it's done. There could be a fee in there too. He did get a fee in the end. So for them, an artist is coming in, giving them a proposal, helping them understand the proposal and why it's helpful there, why it's good for the community. And in his case, it was done. It doesn't matter how famous you are or are not. He got that in fairly quickly. In New York, you see sculpture popping up here and there. That's temporary. That's the key. If you go to a town council and you say, I want to permanently put this big sculpture here, much more difficult. Permanent is a big word. Temporary, easy to sign on to. Permanent, that's a little tricky. That means they have to care for it in perpetuity. Wow, that's a lot of responsibility. So temporary is better in those cases. So that's one more. That is slightly is another proposal. It's kind of a business proposal, but it's more a field of some of the things we're talking about. But it's a project proposal. That's a public project. He got that cited. I follow often artists in the newspaper who propose and get written about to town councils that get their work done. Thomas Hirschhorn did one in Brooklyn, and he's a fairly well-known artist, but he wanted to build this kind of temporary kind of structure in the park that would enable people to have kind of gatherings and look at the park in a different way. Nobody understood it, and they didn't they weren't sure they trusted him. He wasn't from the community. He was from Sweden, and he was explaining this project that sounded pretty highbrow. And it took him several meetings and really getting it down to, look, this is where people are going to play and have fun. And it's only going to be up for 6 months and it'll be down. They went for it. Christo and Jeanne Claude, probably artists that are, super famous, right? You think, how could they not get something in? They work enormously hard at getting their project proposals in. Because they're so big, everyone's skeptical. And they pay for everything themselves. So they went to New York City, Christo and Jeanne Claude. In the 70s, they had a huge proposal for doing these gates in Central Park. Many meetings they went through for that in the 70s into the 80s. And finally, the planning board said to them in a fairly thick document, this isn't going to happen in New York. We're not going to do it here. And there's many reasons, and we're listing them all here. So they stopped for a while. And then a new mayor came in, Bloomberg, and they started the process again. They thought maybe he's a little more friendly. After another dozen or two meetings, they got permission. This isn't unheard of, artists that get turned down by governments, that get turned down by something, and wait for the tides to change a little bit, until there's somebody in there that's more friendly to the arts, which Bloomberg was and is. So yet another example of, it doesn't matter if you're famous or not. In fact, if you're famous, you have, there's even more skepticism there because the community thinks, oh, you're just going to come in here and do this? A great story that Christo told, and I know him, I've interviewed him, and my wife and I have met him, and at some point his late wife as well. He said when they went to Germany, they wanted to wrap the Reichstag, right, this political thing, and they went to Parliament to say, how do we do this? Well, there's 200 members of Parliament in Germany. I think that's what it was. And each member of Parliament represents a different constituency in Germany, right? I mean, follow this, because this is pretty mind-blowing. They said, so Christo and Jeanne Claude went to talk to every single member of Parliament because they were told by the head, every member of Parliament has to be a majority. They have to all agree that you can wrap this building as an artwork for it to go forward. And we know Christo is paying for everything, but still he had to get the permission. So what happened was they met with every member of parliament, right? And every member of parliament, all 200 members, says, we think that's interesting. There's only one thing, though. We represent our constituents. So you're going to have to go to our communities and talk to everybody and convince them to tell us that we should do it. Otherwise, we won't do it. Everyone in there, voter block, out of 200 people, they had to canvass almost every corner of Germany. And they did. What that meant was Christo and Jean-Claude went to schools, libraries, senior centers, every kind of public space all over Germany, one district at a time, explaining why a project as weird as wrapping the Reichstag was worthy of their positive vote to parliament, to their representative in parliament. I mean, they got it, but wow, remarkable. Even if you have the money to do it, would you do that? So, okay, that's just stepping back. That's the summary of a lot of the things that I've talked about here, and I'm giving you some outside examples of public art, just to say, in those cases, it's a negotiation, but usually not nearly as hard. Usually, Christo was doing a major monster project. Usually it's, can I put my sculpture in this plaza? Can I put my sculpture in this medium, this divider on a highway, on a road in your town? And you can, and if it's safe and it can be bolted to the ground or whatever it is, and it's temporary, permission can be given by going through town council meetings and simply asking. It's project proposal. That's slightly different than gallery or nonprofit or business, because we're talking about town governments, which arguably is a nonprofit, right? They're funded by the state and then the government, but a little bit, the politics are a little bit different there. Stay away from the word permanent. Temporary sculptures are easy to say yes to. Still takes you arguing for that and explaining why it's so good, but that works. Okay, everyone, that's my talk today on project proposals and business proposals for both galleries, nonprofits, and alternative spaces, as well as public spaces. I'm going to answer all your questions now. And again, if you're hearing this in after it was done live, you can still ask questions here, and you can go through all the other questions to see if it has been answered, or you can also put in here if you'd like me to come up, speak on another topic for the members group. And last, before I take all your questions, if you have any, I want to say that I really love you guys. I love this group and the support that you give each other, because what's most important to me about this group, what I think makes it really exciting to answer questions in every day, is to see the support that all of you give each other. And I recognize a lot of your names already. A lot of you do that here. Chi, Lily, Luna, Hope, Gina, everyone. When you comment on other people's posts, you're being supportive and loving and kind and helpful. And there's nothing more vital to a community. And I think perhaps more than any other demographic, artists need that kind of support. It helps. So thank you. I just want to thank you for doing that and encourage you to keep doing that, making comments, because that's enormously valuable to the health of the group and to all of you. The more you give, right? I mean, we all know this, but in social media and what's happening in the group, it is just the truth. The more you comment, the more people will comment on your posts. It's something I talk about a lot in social media. If you comment on other people's comment, not just a like, or that's cool. If you write a sentence about museum posts or gallery posts or anybody that you want the attention of, write some good compliments, a sentence on their Instagram post. You don't have to tell them to follow you back or check out your work. The first thing they're going to do is click and say, who is this nice person that's saying these nice things? It's just how human nature, it's how social media works. It's an exchange. When you comment on someone's work and say, and Luna says or Sue says, "Wow, beautiful work. I really like that you did this and that." Chances are that person's also going to be interested in who you are, because we want to love the person who is being so kind to us, right? That's also human nature. So let's get on to questions, and I want to thank you all for being here today. Let's see, what about exhibiting as an artist-run communities, exhibiting at an artist-run community space where one has the opportunity to offer artwork for sale in comparison to prices of artwork sold at a gallery? Should it be a good idea to reduce pieces by a commission fee, 30 to 40% at the first mentioned space, or should one be consistent across all areas, all art centers? Okay, a few things there. Yes, you have to be consistent across all art areas. If your painting costs $1,000 at a gallery, it's $1,000 at the retail. At this sounds like a co-op or an artist-run center. It's $1,000 retail there. If you sell it out of your studio, it's $1,000 there. If someone's negotiating with you, you want to give them 10 or 20% off the price, you can do that, but you can't reduce the prices. That undermines your whole market, and it makes collectors of yours of the past very upset. For example, if I bought one of your paintings as a collector from a gallery, and then I saw that, in the artist-run space that you're in, it's 30% off. Like, what happened? If I bought it here, it would have been less, or if I bought it in your studio, it would have been less. It's just across the board, all gallerists agree. Everything has to be retail. You can't, otherwise you're undermining your potential ability to create a market and a value for your artwork. I hope that answers your question. If it didn't, ask it again. If I missed some part of that, did I say LNCC? LMCC, lower. That's it. I said two things when I mentioned nonprofit organizations in New York, which serve the arts and have done storefront exhibits. One is Chashama, 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 and the other is LMCC, which stands for Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, I believe. Lower Manhattan Community, something like that. LMCC. They have a place on Governor's Island. Really active, wonderful organizations. I've done a residency with them, a number of things. They're great. They're great people. Very popular. So that's the one I mentioned. Hey, Allison, let's see. And okay, I'm going to go through all of these. So please let me know if I missed anything. That was Sasha's question. Allison. Hi, Allison. Maeve, which is a good strategy to get sponsors on board? Okay, so it depends what you're doing, but let's say if you heard it from the beginning, I gave one strategy where there were sponsors, and it was kind of a little seamless. She wanted to do projections on the side of Rockefeller Center, and she found out in order to do that, she had to go through all kinds of channels, as well as get lots of money to rent enormously expensive projectors. When she found out where she had to place the projectors, which was on top of Saks Fifth Avenue, and she eventually got to talk to people there who turned her down but said they'll send it to the marketing department said, hey, this actually works for us right now. We're doing a program about a campaign about happiness, and this fits. We'll fund the whole thing, which, I think it was like $25,000, $30,000. Sounds like a lot of money to you to do it, but for them, it wasn't much. So depending on what the project is, when it has some public benefit, like murals and other things that share goodwill, sometimes the people involved will be the sponsors, right? People that have to donate equipment, that have to donate space. And then you can ask those same people, I'd like you to also donate $1,000 in cash, and you'll be in the press releases and more. That's one question. Feel free to ask more. Let's see. Oh, you're so welcome, Bill. Great to have you aboard, and hope that helps Marie. And let's see. Thank you, Melissa. Any advice on finding underwriters to help with funding or acting as partners? Well, I think I just mentioned that, Bill. I hope that helped, unless you mean something different. But absolutely. let's say it depends what the proposal is for. Again, let's say it's for a mural or public sculpture or something like that. First, what you need in almost all those cases is your plan and permission. If you get a plan and permission, then you're at this, which in most cases the hardest thing is maybe you're dealing with corporations, so you have to go through, a dozen people to get to the right person is what happens. Or you're going through, somewhere, another system of people. If you're looking for an underwriter of a public project that's citing things as a mural, maybe you're talking about talking to the town council. That's where you have to go through to get permission, right? I'm talking about permission. So the first goal is proposal, which is just your idea fleshed out. Permission, whether to cite it temporarily in a public space or to have a gallery show or whatever it is. And then you can get sponsors on board because all your ducks are in a row. You can say, you can sponsor this and get your name written on the wall. There's a lot of ways to get sponsors, which I can talk more about if you want. But I hope that helps. Feel free to ask more, Bill. You're so welcome, Norma. Great to have you aboard. Thanks, Holly. Thrilled to have this community as well and be part of this community. No, it's not beyond the talk, Bill. Yeah, you can ask me anything. If there's things that you feel are related, I'll try to address anything in this talk. Thanks, Sasha, so much. Luna says, thanks. This is what I shared with others who had reduced their prices, that we should be consistent. Right, exactly. Okay, glad that helped, Bill. And but Bill, to your question, because I was going to say one more thing about sponsors, everybody. If you get a space sponsored, if you get permission to show your work in a space, one method of sponsorship, which maybe some of you know, which I called sponsors in a bag, and I've seen artists take this method and run with it once they see it work once. Here's the process, and this may not be for all of you, but let's say you have a pop-up show in some space. A realtor lets you have the space, whatever it is. You have a space, and now you want sponsors for it. You want to get paid. Not rely on selling the work, because friends will come and maybe you won't sell any unless there's someone there really making sales. So you want sponsors. There's something called sponsors in a bag, and this is how it works. They do this at a lot of different events. The way sponsors in a bag works is they say essentially, you say to people that are local, and it could be doctors, lawyers, dentists, professionals. You can say, hi, I'm an artist. I'm having a show for 3 weeks in this, storefront space down here. It'll be filled with color. It'll be amazing, or whatever it is. And say, I'm asking if you want to sponsor the show. And that would cost $200, and I would need 100 business cards from you. Okay, do you understand the proposal? Because this is a pretty sweet one and a pretty clean one that, if you choose to use it, racks up money pretty fast, pays for all your expenses and more without even selling work. So, okay, you have a pop-up show, you have permission, you have the space. Now you're getting sponsors. It's called sponsors in a bag. You go around to different professionals and you say, would you like to sponsor my show? For $200 and 100 cards, 100 business cards of yours, I will make bags. And the first 100 people that come in will get your business card along with everyone else's for just $200. And these are art people. They're probably your audience. They're in the area. They may ask for your services. Would you like to do that? That's cheap for them, right? $200. And for you, you have to buy 100 plastic bags and put a card in each bag, right? But you get 5 sponsors like that. And I'm telling you, 1 or 2 lawyers do it. The others want to do it, or dentists or doctors or therapists or massage therapists. There's a million professionals that can do this. When they see 4 other people doing it, they want to jump on board. So 5 people doing that is $1,000. You could stop right there. It's just $1,000, but maybe that pays for what's going on at the show. Maybe not. You want to do 10? That's $2,000. You want to do 20? That's $4,000. You can even make the prices a little higher. So there was one artist that was doing this. He made these kind of like surf paintings, and he would go around with his van from county to county and state to state, and he would find a pop-up space, put up a show that only lasted like less than a week, 4 days, and then he'd go around to professionals and say, I'm an artist. This is what's going to happen. All the community will get your cards. Are you interested in this? He said, not only did all those professionals come, right? Everybody that gave the card came to the show. They want to see what's happening and how it works out. He said a lot of those professionals ended up buying work. He said, and I wasn't so into selling the work, you know. He said, if I made 2,000-3,000 at one show, I was good. I didn't need to sell anything. I was out of there. He said, even $1,000, I'm on to the next town. I slept in my van. You know, that's how he did it. He was like addicted to this process. And he said, but what happened was, the lawyers, the doctors, all these people who weren't usually interested in art would come to the show. They've already invested in him because they sponsored him a little bit, and they'd buy one of his paintings. Okay, that's more maybe information that you didn't ask for, Bill, but I think that's like an awesome one to try. You know, again, it takes getting the ball rolling. Woman that did that recently very well was Sarah in the group. She was trying to raise money for a solo show, one woman show, and it was edgy. You know, it was all about her kind of sexual history. It was specifically about difficulties she had both mentally and physically with sex, and tough show, right? It was a one woman show that she was doing a monologue in. And she raised $7,000 for it. People were enormously supportive, and it wasn't material that was easy to handle or to explain quickly, you know, to someone and say, "Don't you want to do that?" It's not like here's lots of colorful paintings. It was tough. It was a tough issue, but a very important one. And her show was beautiful. I went to see it. Okay, so. Yes, in a bag, Bill, could pair well with a cause. That is true. You can add so many things in that. In a bag also would pair well with, there's a poetry reading, there's a band that night, there's, you know, something else. With a cause could work great, because let's say you say, it was a great comment of Bill's. Let's say you're doing this pop-up show, you're getting sponsors, and you tell all the sponsors it's going to be 50% of all the sales are going to the ASPCA. And, you know, 50% is cool, right? Because if your paintings are retail all $1,000 based on what a gallery should sell them for, 50% is normally what you'd give the gallery, right? So, so that would be fair. So great comment, Bill. And I hope everybody understands that. That sponsors in a bag, along with a show where you're giving half the money of your paintings to a cause. Really nice way to bridge that together, because there's two positives about that. One, you feel good, you're giving to your favorite cause, whether it's the ASPCA or PETA or a political organization, you're giving to your favorite cause. And it encourages people to buy, because they're not just buying for you, they're contributing to a social cause. They're helping to save the world. It's a pretty nice thing to feel when you buy a piece of art. Thank you, everyone. I think those are all the questions. If you want to, thanks so much, Luna, for your kind comments, everyone. And if anybody wants me to do another talk, please put it in the comments here, or make a new post in the group and say, hey, Brainerd, I just wondered, could you do a talk on this or why, or could we really expand the patrons in a bag talk? Anything you want. Let me know. I'm here to serve you. And I just want to say again at the end, thank you for all the support that you give each other. That is just critical here. And I know it's important to every one of you. We all like comments and support. And as artists, it's essential. So thank you all. I wish you all a great, great day, a great evening, to whenever you're hearing this. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.